Good afternoon. I have the honor and the pleasure to introduce to you Judge Heather Morse, who was appointed to the Santa Cruz bench in 1989. Prior to becoming a judge, she worked as a juvenile probation officer and a district attorney. Since her appointment, she has served in criminal, civil, family law, juvenile delinquency and dependency, drug court, teen peer court, and homeless court assignments. She was elected presiding judge of her court 3 times and especially enjoys teaching and court administration. Judge Morse was appointed to California Supreme Court Justice Ron George to the Judicial Council in 2002 to 2005, where she also worked on policy and legislative committee with Justice Marvin Baxter and the Rules and Procedures litigation committees. Judge Morse was then appointed by the Chief Justice to the Mental Health Criminal Offenders Task Force for the Judicial Council in 2011, and then to the Mental Health Implementation Task Force in 2012. Judge Morse has been working with individuals with mental illness in the justice system for 25 years. She is dedicated to the premise that we can ensure safe communities and achieve better outcomes for individuals with mental illness through collaboration of community resources. On a personal note, Judge Morse has also adopted a dog from the SPCA to be trained as a therapy dog for the juvenile hall in her community, in her county. And so on behalf of all the animal lovers in the room, I'd like to welcome Judge Heather Morse.
Thank you so much, John. That's nice. Good afternoon. One of the good things, I guess, about coming on the program about midway through is that you get to have heard what everybody else has started out with. And so everything I wrote, you guys have all said and heard already. So I'm going to change it around a little bit. I would like to thank you for inviting us here to participate with you today. It is an honor to be here with you in this distinguished group of people. I'd like to recognize each of you, but there are also some in my own group of judges that I would like to recognize today. And how many judges do we have in the state of California, Judge Loftus? About 1,700, I'm told. And among those, each of them being leaders, there are leaders among leaders. And I would really like to acknowledge the 5 judges that are here today, well, 4 of the 5, to tell you that they have taken up this cause and have worked tirelessly and don't want to give up, and we keep asking for extensions on our committee over and over again. But I would like to acknowledge you've heard from Judge Loftus, who is our chair, and Judge Manley, who is the inimitable and infamous, who says, he really is our director of process. He says, don't worry about how to do it, just do it. Just get out there and do it. And then I'd like to also acknowledge 2 judges that are in the back, and I'd ask them to stand up, actually. We have Judge Roman from Sacramento County and Judge Garrett Wong from San Francisco County. These 2 judges in the back have been working so amazingly on the educational components that are going to be brought back to judges and implemented into all judicial training. And so I just wanted to recognize them also, because they're going to help alleviate what you heard about this morning about the judge who maybe sentences everybody to the same thing for the next 20 years because that's all they know how to do, or for the brand new baby judge who basically is taken the bench, comes from a large law firm, very distinguished, really doesn't like to be made to look stupid, and all of a sudden here's a mentally ill person brought in custody and they have no clue what to do with them. So these gentlemen are going to have scripts and tools and education toolkits so that these judges are going to have the ability to relax on the bench, to listen as Judge Manley says, and to really be humans, okay? So that's what I'm really hoping for. I just wanted to acknowledge them because they also are here and have done a great deal of great work. So I also would just summarize by saying that we are all perplexed in the criminal justice system about how to handle people with mental illness, how to assist them. We've not been doing well, as Judge Loftus said. We've been trying, though. It's not for a want of sincere intent. Our county jails and CDC, of course, we've all talked about, are the largest mental health hospitals in the state. And I'm sure that all your communities have also been feeling these same struggles and problems. But in Santa Cruz County, we're just here to tell you today what we are doing to address this in our own way in our small county. And actually, I guess we'd say we're a medium-sized county. But the factors that faced us, and I'm sure many of you have experienced these also, was that we had serious jail overcrowding. We had a federal case brought against us that basically said you either reduce your head count or we're going to be having serious sanctions against you. In addition to that, our county board of supervisors said, you know what, we're not giving you a cent to build bigger jails, whether you're going to make them therapeutic or not, because all we're going to do, or if we build them, all you'll do is fill them. So there's a breakdown in trust right there. But regardless, we still had the problem. And we also could see, in a small town, you can also see that not only statistics tell you, but your personal experience tells you that a certain population was cycling through the system. Certain people would show up over and over again. And the cost of repeat de minimis offenders was extremely high to everybody in the system. You've all heard about the impact on law enforcement, health services, our CIT and jail staff, our hospitals, our medication budgets. My role in being on this judicial task force, I think, is that I had some experience in judicial administration. That's what I really, really enjoy, is trying to work with the courts to do things differently, or to be more efficient, or to be more caring. And so, or to try new things. Many times judges don't like to try new things. And so that's why I'm interested in court administration. So when I was a part of this task force, one part of the experience I brought here is that every time a person is put on calendar in court, it costs the taxpayer $100. Okay, you can just figure it's pretty close to that, differs maybe county to county. But every time a person comes on calendar, arraignment, pretrial, setting, review, whatever it is, it's about $100 for the bailiff, the clerk, the court reporter, the interpreter, the paperwork, the processing. In addition to that, probation and parole, we've heard about the impact on them, but also the community experience and expense. We have safety concerns where people in the community don't feel safe when they're walking around, and people with mental illness who are untreated or unserved are also having an impact in our downtown area. For example, we actually had a homicide of one of our business owners by one of our mentally ill patients that was undertreated or unserved. So it is a community problem when we realize that. Our individual patient outcomes, what really hit it for me was when at one of these conferences, I think it was our task force meeting, we had a patient from NAMI who was there, who told us that when she was ill, she really didn't want to rely on the people that she had left in her name in the treatment plans and the waivers. When she was ill, she didn't want them to help her. But when she was well, she felt like the support of everyone was really what helped her to go on living. And it is, what she said really made an impact on me. She said, you don't put your people with diabetes in jail. Why are you putting people with mental health in jail? You need to treat these people and not necessarily just try to warehouse them. So now I also want to just briefly touch on judges. The judges have, why should we care? Our calendar management is costly, but it also needs to be more caring. I think that there's nothing that takes more time on a calendar than you have an unusual personality, if you will, that really is decompensated and needs your attention. And so that's why we need to handle those matters in a different court so that they get the treatment they need. But also judges need to be concerned about community safety, what happens in the newspaper, as well as the fact that we are there to resolve conflict. We are there for better outcomes for not only these individuals, but our community at large. We've heard a lot about AB 109, reentry, and also the Affordable Care Act. My heart goes out to all of you who are in medical treatment, because you're really experiencing a paradigm shift, and we're trying to go along behind you to figure out how can we help you with the population that we both work for. So I'm really honored today to I know that a lot of you are doing exciting projects, but I'm here to introduce for you some people that I am most especially proud of. Because of their hard work over the years, we are actually beginning to implement our mental health court. So that's how it's occurred in our county. But I want to tell you that the businesses that we have been working with, we come from a culture where the bookshop downtown, where everybody goes to get their newspapers, magazines, books, everything, they're selling coffee mugs, t-shirts, book bags. They all say, keep Santa Cruz weird. Okay, we can keep it unusual, but we really need to move away from weird. So we're working to do that, and these people are experts in their field, and I'm very honored to introduce them to you now. Pam Rogers-Wyman is our Acute Services Program Chief. She has her Bachelor of Arts at UC Berkeley in psychology. She has her Master's in Clinical Psychology, and she's also an LMFT. She's going to basically explain to you about our history and stakeholder process, as well as the funding aspects. That's really important to all of us. Jasmine Nahara is our Supervising Mental Health Client Specialist. She's our Jail CIT Supervisor and our most supervisor. She has her Bachelor of Arts in Mexican Chicano History at UCSC. She has her Master's in Social Work in Administrating and Planning track at the University of Texas, and she's a licensed clinical social worker. Danielle Long is our Mental Health Client Specialist, our most coordinator, and mental health liaison to Santa Cruz PD. She has her Bachelor of Arts in Sociology at UCSC and a master's degree in social work from San Jose State University. And James Russell is our Encompass Community Services worker. He's an outreach worker in our downtown area and a case manager in the downtown corridor. He has his Bachelor of Arts in Religion, cum laude, from California Baptist College, and his master's in Marriage and Family Therapy from Western Seminary. Of interest to you, I think, will be the fact that he's a retired state parole agent and also in the Army Reserve. The experience that each of these people and training brings to these roles, I think, is really going to come out, and I invite you to enjoy their presentation. Pam?
And I'm hoping someone can tell me how to operate the PowerPoint from up here. Push the button. I'm pushing it and, sorry, judgmentally.
There you go. Okay. So what do you want to do?
I just want to go to the next slide.
Screen. Okay. Okay, hold on here. Let me try and help you
While
out.
they're working on this technical
Yes,
difficulty,
you take care of that.
I'm going to tell some jokes. No, I'm going to introduce Sarah, who is our probation officer on the MOST team. She achieved her Bachelor of Arts degree at UCSC in psychology. And she also has been with probation how many years? Almost 14 years. So I didn't mean to leave Sarah out. She's an integral part of our team. Thank you.
So as Judge Morris said, we're really here to tell you our story. I've certainly worked with a number of people in this room over the course of my career, many of whom I have borrowed ideas from, consulted with, as well as have mentored me. So this really is just the story of Santa Cruz County and how we've evolved services for individuals with psychiatric disabilities who end up in the criminal justice system. So we have a long history in our community of collaboration with several key partners. I know since realignment, many counties are really looking at this idea of collaboration. I have to say, one of the things I'm most proud about as a mental health professional in our community is the fact that we've had these collaborations long-standing. In fact, for 30 years, we've had an MOU with our probation department. Santa Cruz County Behavioral Health for years and years actually funded a probation officer position that is housed in the mental health building and works collaboratively with the mental health staff. Really is our liaison to the courts. We also have had, a jail crisis team like most communities have had, but we had a really excellent relationship with the courts through our jail discharge planner position. It's an individual who's housed down in the jail, and when individuals with psychiatric disabilities are in custody, he works with the courts and the individual really as the liaison and the broker of services. And again, for many, many years, attempting to get people into treatment. Another thing that we had in terms of collaboration for a number of years is mental health probation. Jasmine and Sarah are going to talk very specifically about what the terms of mental health probation are, but they are specific, and they may not name a treatment program, but they're very clear around compliance issues, and that's really a key strategy for us that has helped for a long period of time. And then the other thing that we've had is people like Judge Morse on the bench who have long been advocates for individuals with psychiatric disabilities to problem solve how we deliver service in lieu of incarceration and making sure we're getting people to the right place. So we have had, and we were commiserating about this at the Forensic Committee meeting yesterday, many of us have had several rounds of MIOCR funding from the state, and the state withdraws the funding or the funding ends, and we're dismantling these lovely, robust programs that we've put together 3 different times or 4 different times. In Santa Cruz County in 2008, when the last round of funding was discontinued, we looked at that and just thought, while most of the services were going away, we absolutely needed to hang on to a mental health clinician that with the expertise in working in the forensics field to be able to properly serve those individuals. So using our Mental Health Service Act funds, we were able to continue the case management piece. And as I said, we already had a probation piece. So we kind of limped along with this very tiny effort in our agency for a period of time. AB 109 comes along, and then stakeholders with the political clout to call a stakeholder meeting, namely Supervisor Neil Coonerty on our Board of Supervisors called a meeting to start what he was calling the Mentally Ill Offender Task Force. He has long been on our local mental health board, has been a big advocate for us, but has always been a champion to do everything he can to get people out of the jail to get them treatment. He saw this as an opportunity to bring together the stakeholders that were now newly concerned about jail overcrowding. In the environment of jail overcrowding, can we do something more aggressive to move individuals with psychiatric disabilities out of the jail and into treatment? So the stakeholders that he convened were essentially Board of Supervisor members, the sheriff, the Santa Cruz Police Chief, the Watsonville Police Chief, the District Attorney, the head of the Public Defenders, the courts, our Health Director, our Behavioral Health Director, and the City of Santa Cruz Mayor and Council members, with other behavioral health partners. And the goal was to devise a solution to address the needs of the consumers in the jail. One of the things that happened in this particular task force was really the opportunity to educate these very influential people about something that we already knew. We knew that FACT team services worked, that Forensic Assertive Community Treatment Services worked in our community. Again, at the Forensic Conference yesterday, we were talking about there is plenty of statewide data, largely published, that prove what these services can do when you wrap essential services around these individuals and provide them with treatment. And we basically did a gap analysis, presented the information to the stakeholder group with here's our jail bed days, here's our hospitalization days, here's our law care days when we had MIOCR funding. Here's what it is today without that funding. And it was dramatic. we had lost so many of the gains that we had made when we were fully funded. It also allowed each of the stakeholders to say what they needed for their particular jurisdiction. For behavioral health, we were very much interested in the reduction of jail bed days as well as hospital days. The sheriff, of course, is trying to manage a new population in his jail and was very interested in the reduction of jail bed days. And also, what I neglected to put on the slide is really the length of stay individuals with psychiatric disabilities stay in the jail. As we've all admired today, it's usually at least twice what an individual without a psychiatric disability might spend in custody. Probation was very much interested in reduction in recidivism, and the city of Santa Cruz came to us with a really specific request. As Judge Morse indicated, our downtown area is particularly problematic in terms of behaviors that have brought up safety concerns for the community, as well as kind of throwing a broad swath across individuals with psychiatric disabilities in terms of stigma and fear. We have also long had a downtown outreach worker in that corridor really outreaching homeless individuals with psychiatric disabilities and trying to broker them into services. But the city of Santa Cruz actually said to us, you know what, we actually want case management. We want someone not just to outreach and point people in the direction, but we want them guided through the system in a seamless way. And the other thing we want is we want a point person for our law enforcement people. So with that, each of these people that I have named are all funders of our current effort. Our current array of the MOSE team are maintaining ongoing stability through treatment team, our FACT team, the downtown outreach worker, our SCPD liaison, and a number of other services at this point are funded by our local stakeholders. Each one of these people put funds up, in-kind contributions up, in order for us to rebuild a very robust array of services. I just want to say a little bit about the Continuum of Services. We're going to start our discussion today kind of as things evolved, but on the slide that you see, we really have an outreach and assessment place at this point in time that we hadn't had in previous times. That liaison and downtown outreach position gives us an opportunity to really do diversion or pre-booking interventions for individuals with psychiatric disabilities. If people do go the way of social services, we link them with the social service system. And again, that's kind of hand-holding them through the process. And they're going to talk to you specifically about what that looks like. And then the other thing is for individuals that we do encounter, even out on the street, that end up with criminal charges, we've now recognized them earlier upstream. They're not languishing in a cell somewhere in our jail unknown to us. Many of these individuals now we're identifying pre-booking and being able to walk them through the system in a more timely manner, get them adjudicated, get them into services as quickly as possible. Okay. So I think we're ready to move on. And as I said, we're going to talk the services. So the first thing we're going to talk to you about is our MOSE team.
Okay. Good afternoon. Talk about being under the spotlight. A little nervous up here, but thank you for having us. The two services that I'm responsible for supervising are the MOSE team, which is really our outpatient services for mentally ill offenders. And I also supervise the jail crisis intervention team, and we provide all the mental health services in custody, along with our jail discharge planner doing the liaison with the courts in probation. Moving right along. So as Pam mentioned about the stakeholders and our funders, just to give you an idea, behavioral health really funds the 2.5 positions for the clinicians. So we have 2 full-time clinicians and a half-time clinician, along with my half-time supervisory role, a full-time psychologist who does the therapy with our clients, a full-time psychiatric provider, and that kind of equals out to a psychiatrist along with a psychiatric nurse provider that follows all of our clients out of custody. And behavioral health also pays for a full-time probation officer. We have 2 full-time probation officers, but this one that we pay for has a caseload of individuals that are all coordinated by our MOST team clinicians. The other full-time probation officer that is paid by the probation department has some of the coordinated cases as well, but they also have people that may have mental health issues but may not meet the level of needing to be coordinated, but still need that extra support from a probation officer who's familiar with mental health issues. So probation also funds the half-time supervisor role that Sarah is in. Half-time licensed psych tech, that's a nurse who goes out into the community and provides medication support. And they also fund a work crew, which is a pro-social activity that we have our clients involved with a few days a week. And then the other piece is that the sheriff's office helps us out with a half-time correctional officer that helps us by doing testing of our clients and by supporting us in doing home visits, and really helps ensure safety concerns. All right, I'm going to try to do this as best as I can. So by offering the MOST team services, it allows us to work in this collaborative and really helps us provide treatment alternatives in lieu of incarceration. The MOST team goals are that we would like to really reduce the jail bed days, the occurrence of new probation violations and offenses, improve our clients' stability, reduce psychiatric inpatient bed days, reduce days of homelessness, increase treatment compliance, and increase the pro-social activities. And we're able to accomplish these goals by doing our best to match the level of service and treatment to the individual client needs. The types of specific individuals treatment that we can provide include the intensive case management, the stipend worked activities, so the individuals that go out on the work crew, they do get a small stipend. They could also work off community service hours and some fines that are imposed by the court or probation. We provide dual diagnosis drug treatment, crisis stabilization, cognitive behavioral therapy, motivational interviewing, medication compliance supports through our the nurse that we have in the field, and he's able to do all of our injectable medications with our clients. And like I said before, the incentives for pro-social activities. One of the keys in order for us to be able to participate in this collaborative with probation and the courts is that the clients must sign a release of information between the 3 partners. And with that release of information, it allows us to clearly communicate with probation concerns and the courts any treatment concerns, or maybe if individuals are not showing up for their doctor's appointments, if we're concerned about them using. This really helps us all stay on the same page and kind of be the united front in helping our clients with their stability and sobriety. Specifically, we also request in the courts, and I do have to say that the courts and the judges that we work with are very supportive of our efforts, really look forward to having us in their courtroom to give them input and direction on where we would like to see cases. So it feels really good to be able to have that partnership with the courts as well. But once somebody is adjudicated and dealt with in the court, we specifically ask that the probation mental health terms include take all medications as prescribed by the county psychiatrist or your treating psychiatrist, follow all county mental health health directives, and drug testing terms. And so really it's an umbrella that we can then be much more individualized and focused with each of our clients around what specific treatment goals we want them to work on. I'm sorry? Okay, I have a minute. So I'll move on to the next team that I supervise, and that's the jail crisis intervention team. And this team basically sets up our clients in order to be able to transfer on to the MOST team once they get out of custody. Jail mental health plays a very important role because unfortunately, it's one of our inpatient mental health treatment centers at this point in Santa Cruz. We have a large population in custody of people that take psychiatric medications. I believe last count it was about 25% of our clients, of the population of jail inmates are taking psychiatric medications. And our jail on an average day is about 425 people. So it's a large number of folks that we serve in custody. So CIT collaborates, sorry, I'm gonna stop for a second. The jail team is basically made up of 2 full-time crisis intervention clinicians. We have the 1 full-time discharge planner. We have psychiatric providers that include a nurse and a psychiatrist. And we also have master-level interns that provide therapy for the clients when they're in custody. We collaborate very closely with the sheriff's office and the medical staff in the jail. We have daily multidisciplinary team meetings to discuss some of the clients that we're most concerned about that are the highest risk. And we create treatment plans and discharge plans on a daily basis with the courts and with the sheriff's staff and medical staff. I want to talk a little bit. The discharge planner that I talked a little bit about is one of the most important staff people that we have. This individual goes to court daily, gives input to the courts on individuals' progress or lack thereof. They give, basically, we talked a little bit before about needing to do more formal assessments in custody prior to getting released. But really, the discharge planner is the one that gets a lot of the referrals from the courts on somebody who might be presenting a little oddly in custody, or there might be concerns that they have mental health issues. And so the discharge planner brings it back to our staff, and then we assess them and have them seen by a provider, started on medication, stabilized. Then the discharge planner goes back to court and gives a recommendation for what the appropriate next steps are, whether it could be going on to the Morse team or being referred for mental health services. All right. And I'll pass it on to Sarah. She's our probation officer.
Hello. So I'm the half-time supervisor for the mental health probation officers. The other half of my time I supervise our sex offender probation officers. And the way that we collaborate, when we were talking about this presentation, it's difficult to separate out our roles because we are all involved in so many different aspects throughout the process. And we'll talk more about the city liaison and how they connect with people out on the street. But in the areas of our county where we don't have outreach workers and liaisons, we start getting involved in some of these cases by being contacted directly by law enforcement agencies. If they've had repeat contacts with the same individuals and they know there's something else going on other than their criminal behavior. At that point, probation can use the relationships that we form to contact the district attorney, and we can help affect filing decisions or just take a look at a different perspective on trying to create a disposition for the case. Everybody's trying to work hard to not continue cases as when it's unnecessary, and so to start that relationship early on, we can make recommendations for by being involved in the jail in our pretrial unit. Not all counties have a pretrial unit. In Santa Cruz, we do have probation officers in the jail that work with a CIT on a regular basis, and we can make recommendations to the court for pre-sentencing release conditions. Top green. Okay. Oh, there we go. I probably should have figured that out before I started talking. So this just illustrates a simple visual of the criminal process and how there's so many different aspects where we can get involved. And in some cases, we may only be minorly involved along the process, maybe asked for pre-release recommendations or asked for input for a disposition by the district attorney if they should look at a mental health therapeutic disposition. And then other cases we follow from the first time they start getting contacted by the police all the way until they're sentenced and put on probation and they wind up on the Morse team. Once they're placed on probation, whether it be a Morse team, mental health focused probation caseload, or a traditional probation caseload, we're always striving to refine and improve our evidence-based supervision by utilizing the principles of effective intervention. The risk, need, and responsivity. We really want to keep that in mind as we're doing our job. Earlier, there was discussion about how probation has changed so much from the hook 'em and book 'em to let's actually work with people. And in Santa Cruz, I've been lucky enough to have my career in a county where we've been doing that for a really long time. We've been doing things different for a long time. And where traditional probation caseloads utilize the case risk assessment tool for under the risk principle, we have the correctional assessment and intervention system. And we really strive to be risk-based supervision because we are limited in our resources and we want to focus our attention on the moderate and high-risk offenders. What makes these types of caseloads a little bit different is that we also take that case risk assessment, but then we get input from behavioral health to help us determine the level of supervision and whether we need an override. We utilize their clinical input to really help us focus on individualized client needs. And that's the benefit, is that we really get to know the person overall because they've already been involved with clinicians when they've been in the jail. They may have already started medications and been treated. So we have already started that rapport building. One of the downsides is, one of the challenges is maybe meeting department standards on the probation side that might be in conflict with contact standards from a more therapeutic or clinical perspective. So there's definitely some benefits and some challenges when we're trying to really move towards risk-based supervision. And we're sending all of our probation officers to all these trainings that tell us that the research is showing if we focus on the top 4 criminogenic needs, we basically get the biggest bang for our buck as far as reducing recidivism. And that they're saying now that that really is the case even for the mentally ill offenders, that we definitely have a different set of circumstances to look at, but we still need to focus on the top 4 criminogenic needs to really affect overall long-term behavior change. One of the challenges to that is that this population has we first have to attain some psychiatric stability. We can't just jump right in to address the behavior that's led to their involvement in the criminal justice system. And that's where collaborating as a team is so beneficial, because we're not working on our own with our own individual caseloads. And also, we have implemented in the probation side, we have implemented EPICS. All of our probation officers are trained in effective practices and community supervision, and it's basically now giving our probation officers a structured interview where we check in with a client, we review any compliance issues, we provide some kind of intervention, and then we give them homework. We are doing a lot more involved case managing. But with this population, it kind of gives us a little curveball because there's a lot of people that aren't at a stability level where we can do that whole model that we're now learning in probation. And so we can work with the clinicians to help us determine who can we actually implement these new types of probation supervision strategies with, and who do we need to focus on medication management, those types of things. But we still have a lot of new tools in probation to work with clients on interventions, even if we can't use the whole model. Responsivity, how do we focus on those needs? We focus on this unique population by having our probation officers, our caseload carrying probation officers, share an office space with the assigned mental health coordinators. We have on our floor, I have a cubicle, Danielle has a cube, and then we have an office, and Jasmine has an office, and Pam, and then we have one big office where we have the probation officers and the county mental health coordinators, and they are there together all the time. And it gives a great place where you can have open dialogue, and you can really take a team approach, especially with walk-ins, and the goal is really to have our probation case plans and the mental health service plans complement each other rather than overwhelm clients. And by having everybody together, it really helps to create that continuity. And we are, in the probation side, really evolving to adjust our case plans from historically being just a regurgitation of their court terms to actually having goals that are focused more on their needs and long-term improvement. It also helps facilitate joint client meetings, and regardless of caseload assignment, we can meet the client's needs, whoever walks in. The challenges of sharing an office can be a chaotic work environment and differing work styles. You put 4 different personalities in an office, and that can be challenging. But we also have a weekly meeting where we include all of these parties, but also a psychiatrist and a CAB representative from Community Restoration Project, and anyone else involved in the clients that overlap on our team or other mental health teams can come to talk about the status. And we also talk about other clients that might be coming down the pike going through the criminal justice system that we might want to take onto our caseload. By jointly meeting with clients, we're able to address compliance issues, our mental health terms that we mentioned before. We like to keep them general on the court orders, and that gives us more flexibility to look at what's available and what is really going to work for that client. And then by having the joint presence of probation and the coordinators, we can, if we have to address non-compliance issues, we can have that probation step in and play that role to help preserve the therapeutic relationship with the coordinator, but be able to offer support and accountability and use probation violations when necessary as a tool to encourage compliance. Okay. And then we mentioned earlier about our community restoration project through the Community Action Board. And this really gives, as we're trying to structure people's day and focus on dosage and interventions for the different level risk clients, the Community Restoration Project offers an area for pro-social employment preparation. It gives them even a possible job referral if they're doing a good job. They can learn job skills. They put on workshops. And it also gives them an opportunity to give back to the community, and as Jasmine said earlier, maybe work off some community service hours or fine obligations that they may have. And in addition, we can utilize positive reinforcement by giving some incentives when they, for the work days that they show up. And I'm going to close by, I'm going to just go ahead and read it because I thought it was really good input from one of our program managers at the El Dorado Center. Had this to say about our CRP work crew. The CRP work crew has been amazing at EDC. The crew has completed a few big projects that have really made a huge impact on the environment in such a positive way. The crew has made this more visually pleasing to be for all the residents and future residents. It feels great to have past residents coming back to do work at the program they were once residents. I cannot say enough about the great job and impact the work crew has had here. We hope the work crew continues to come at EDC as their work really does impact the community in such a profound and positive way. And we hear that on a regular basis, but it's really great to have them be able to go through a program, graduate, come back, and make some improvements for others.
Great. I'm a little outside my element here today. Excuse me. I'm usually outside. This is the most time I think I've spent inside in quite a while. Usually do not wear a suit. This would automatically, I would not have any work to do if I wore the suit downtown. But since I am here, I'm out of my element, and I have to prove that my wife, that I am here. Can I have you folks look like you're not in a sugar coma after lunch? Because I gotta take a picture. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, okay. Green, but so we're kind of turning a little bit different direction right now. We're going from what we've been doing, our history, what happens when people get into custody. Now we're talking about some of the things that we do in our county, and particularly in our city of Santa Cruz, on a pre-booking diversion level, how we can try and avoid having people enter into the mental health system through custody, which traditionally, again, as Judge Morse mentioned, I've been involved in the law enforcement community for a number of years. I was actually, I believe it was the first MIOCA grant when the MOST team started. I was one of the probation officers on it. And so I know the history that ultimately most people came into the mental health system through law enforcement contacts, and that's just how it happened. So through necessity, through need, we have this little 0.6 mile stretch from our town clock on Pacific Avenue down to Laurel Street, 0.6 miles, 2 streets wide, happens to just be the epicenter of the city of Santa Cruz, and everybody comes there. And so from that, there was some problems that were identified. Actually, right after the earthquake back in '94, I believe it was identified, and we devised this downtown outreach worker position from that, and it's kind of evolved over time. And 4 things, maybe, green button, that green button. 4 things that we're looking at when we're looking at diversion: interagency collaboration, active involvement, early identification, cross-trained case managers. We're hoping for case managers with an S very soon. Right now, just 1 person in the downtown outreach position, 1 person in the mental health liaison position with the police department. But we're hoping for that S to come in there pretty soon through some more creative design and planning. So we fortunately do have cross-training. I come from a law enforcement background. I also spent, prior to coming on board in October, I'm the newest member of this team up here, came on board in October of last year. Prior to that, I spent a year in Santa Clara County with some of Judge Manley's referrals to substance abuse treatment at Family Children's Services doing outpatients. So I have a background in that as well. And then this is actually probably one of the hardest learning curves that I've been on, is being the downtown outreach worker position. I'm used to a caseload of people assigned to me. They have probation terms, they have parole terms. They're coming to treatment for a reason. I'm actually doing cold call sales right now, and it's kind of a unique learning thing for me. It's like, how do you walk up and say, "Hi, my name's James, I'm the downtown outreach worker. Do you want to talk to me?" And especially if they're paranoid, no. And oftentimes that's polite if they say no. And as a former parole agent, actually I did it for 11 years, I had a hard time controlling my, what's that big term in psychology? Countertransference, when they said F off. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's about rapport building. We'll come back to that in a second. Let me bounce back to MDT core team. So some of our interagency collaboration here, we have a multidisciplinary team that is comprised of Santa Cruz City PD, has their sergeant who, again, the PD has a whole team assigned to that 0.6 mile stretch. So we have 2 officers on each side of the week, a community service officer on each side of the week, A and B team, and then a sergeant. So sergeant comes to this meeting, Danielle comes to this meeting, and we also have hospitality hosts, this company that, I'll use the word, patrols this area, kind of giving information, kind of advising people, hey, you can't sit here, or this or that, there's these rules down here. So we get together, we talk about, hey, who's showing up on the scene? And this MDT team keeps me sane. They also keep me accountable, because sometimes, you walk out the door, you got tunnel vision, or you've seen certain things, and you start getting numb, and your team really comes up and goes, have you seen what so-and-so did this week, or did you know about this? And really keeps you on task, and that core team is really important to any type of progress and just being aware of what's going on. We identify the individuals that are in need of mental health services. Again, my position's it's about mental health treatment. It's trying to get people connected with services, improve their quality of life, integrate them into the community. I'm also doing outreach, though, to homeless individuals as well that might not be mentally ill. And then we do proactive planning for interventions within that team. And then Danielle's going to come and talk for just a second.
Hi, I am Danielle, and I'm the Santa Cruz PD mental health liaison, and my position was created out of the downtown outreach worker position, which I was in for about 12 years. And the city and the county recognized a need for a person to work directly with the police, with the city police department, to provide direct and rapid response to with the police in engaging people in services who are kind of going the criminal justice route, people that are mentally ill and committing crimes in the downtown corridor. So my role downtown is really a collaborative effort between mental health and law enforcement to reduce recidivism and provide positive outcomes for the individuals that we're working with. And when I'm working with the officers, I respond to 5150 type calls, crisis calls. I write the 5150s. I will often go with the officer to our 5150 facility to kind of facilitate that that process. And then also when I'm riding in the car with the officers, they're listening for their badge numbers, but I'm always listening for 5150, 415, 647F, 11550, because those are all of the, those are kind of all the people that we deal with in the downtown area that are mentally ill are also using drugs, drinking, getting into verbal altercations with individuals. And then in addition, so also when an individual does not meet the criteria for a 5150, I'm always trying to figure out an intervention that would work best for the individual, that's kind of the least restrictive setting. So if I don't think that a person meets the criteria and they're not committing crimes, we have a few crisis subacute programs that we can refer people to. So we have the El Dorado Center, and then we have, which Sarah read a quote from, and then we also have the River Street Shelter, and it's a homeless facility, and we have a couple mental health beds that we're able to refer people into. And then in addition to that, I provide ongoing training with the officers in the field when I'm working with them, and also in more formal settings at roll call trainings or in their shift trainings. And they also provide me with training on their end, because my area of expertise is mental health, and theirs is of course law enforcement. So they've taught me how to, if there's an emergency and I'm in the car with them, how to get on the radio and call for cover. So it's while I'm educating them, they're also educating me. And the goal of this collaboration is, of course, to reduce recidivism and also to provide the most positive outcome for the individuals that we're working with, and also looking at the community as a whole and public safety and how we can work with all of our partners in the community and providing positive outcomes for the individuals that we're working with.
So again, back to the downtown outreach worker position, which we affectionately call the DOW, kind of prophetic, I kind of like it. One of the things that we do in terms of early identification and outreach is educating the community. Down there I do trainings, Danielle comes along as well. We do trainings for businesses, for law enforcement, for city workers, city council, we talk with different folks. Everybody has my phone number, and it's really amazing how empowered people feel if they see a problem. Oh my gosh, there's all this stuff that happens down here all the time, and it gives them this sense of doom, I think, sometimes. And when you go in and you do a training, go, here's my phone number, you can call me, and I'll come over and I'll check on it if I'm available or as I'm available. And you just see kind of that tension just kind of go down. It's a really good resource just for the community. But what also happens is they become eyes and ears. Earlier this week, I did a training on Tuesday for 50 people in the parking crew for the city. And I'm kind of trembling right now because 50 new people who are traveling all over the place now have my phone number, and my phone is just going, and I'm like, I'm running over here, running over there. But that's really one of the important things is again, being able to see the behaviors, identify them before they just get so far out that the police are going to have to get involved, and where we can actually talk still and try and problem solve with someone, build some rapport with them. Again, we do classic outreach. You know, we're walking up to people and just saying, hey, someone called me up. I have 3 ways that I come in contact with people. One is I get a direct call from someone, so I will walk up to someone and say, I just received a phone call, or someone called concerned about your situation and just wanted to check in with you. The other one is I have this unique internal radar, which most of us have. Mine's been developed after 20-odd years in the law enforcement field and stuff, and you know, you kind of have this, it goes up to here, and this is okay behavior, and then you hit about here, and you're like, oh, this person we need to contact right now. And so I kind of go with that internal meter, And then the third thing is I have to walk by somebody about 3 times, and if I notice they're in the same spot or something's just out of place, I always wait 3 times. I was going up to them the first time, and I get the, my wife is in the store shopping type thing. So those of you that are familiar with Santa Cruz, some people that look out of place, they never are. That's right, we'll laugh. And one of the things that we also are trying to do is identify and assess new arrivals into our town as quickly as possible. Learning rhythms of life. First of the week of the month, guess what? Everyone has their Social Security benefit payments. And boom, they're traveling around the state. I don't know if anybody knows, but hopping on a Greyhound, $100 will get you anywhere in the state. And some places from Oregon will get you to Santa Cruz. So if we can identify those folks as soon as they get off the bus or as quickly as possible, we might be able to link them back up to where they came from and link them back up, because they already have service providers and stuff. But if they're allowed, you know, they remember coming to Santa Cruz on vacation with their children, or when they were kids with their families, and they're like, oh, it'd be a great idea to go to Santa Cruz. They come down, well, they got there, but then they're stuck. And they didn't think about the hotel room and all the other stuff. Again, we do rapport building, and first glance, it's don't want to talk to you. 2 months later, I have people going, hey, can I talk to you? And it's more about process. Coming from the parole side of things, I'm used to, it has to happen now, and you're going to talk to me now. But I've learned that it's really about building rapport. It's about giving that client a sense of autonomy and being able to come back to us. So I'm going to let Danielle come back up and finish this slide up.
So some of our other tools for engagement are our Homeward Bound program, which we have access to funds for individuals who find themselves stuck in Santa Cruz and their services or their family is somewhere else. So oftentimes when I or James are out on the street or with an officer, the officer will run their name and discover that they're maybe missing out of another county, or their address is out of another county. And so we'll suggest to them, you know, maybe you want to go back and access the services that you've got in your county or state of origin. So Homeward Bound is one of our tools that we use. And then the 180-180 project is part of a nationwide effort to house 100,000 of the nation's most vulnerable homeless individuals. So in Santa Cruz County, we have the 180-180 program, and as part of that, we have in the downtown area the 100-Day Dash, and that is an effort to house 25 of the most vulnerable, high-profile individuals in our downtown corridor. So that list was created with James and myself and the downtown police and the hospitality guides, and then we also have it's called the VSPDAT, which is basically a vulnerability index tool where we are looking at what people's needs are. And so as part of that effort, we're also finding that while we're trying to house people, we're also finding that there's other areas where we can refer people, such as mental health, substance abuse treatment, and you know, other resources that are available for them. And then we work closely with the MOSE team. I work with the MOSE team half-time. So when we're working with individuals in the downtown area who are committing crimes, and often the only way to get them into treatment is through the criminal justice system, with the goal of reducing, once we get them into the criminal justice system and on mental health probation, our goal is to then work with them and keep them out of jail. So I'm gonna just talk about one example of somebody who was in the downtown area and was committing crimes in the downtown area, really just nuisance crimes related to his illness. He was walking around downtown in urine-soaked clothes, yelling at people, hair matted, pants falling down, generating numerous calls for service by the social workers, by the hospitality guides, and by the police. So he was generating he was generating a lot of concern in the community downtown. So I hospitalized him a couple times, and then he came back downtown, and he was going there. We have a CVS in the downtown area, and he was going into the CVS pretty much on a daily basis, drinking beer, sometimes throwing up on the floor, and then walking out. And this was that CVS would call the police over and over again. And then I responded with the police and suggested that maybe we could elevate the charge to a burglary because he was going into the CVS with the intent to steal the beer and then leave, and he was going to come back with the intent to steal. So the sergeant on duty that day agreed that we could elevate the charge to a burglary if I would agree to work with the DA's office and with the courts and with the jail in trying to get him some mental health treatment. So that's what we did, and we navigated him through the jail system, through the mental health system, onto the Morse team with a probation officer and with mental health terms, which provided him with the tools to access health care, mental health care, housing. He worked with our community restoration project crew and had a sense of pride because of working with the crew. And he successfully completed his probation with no violations. He was on probation for 3 years. He didn't have any violations, and he's currently still housed, and he's been off of probation for close to 2 years, about a year, a little over a year and a half. So we have numerous success stories like this. And one of the things that we really recognize in the downtown area positions and on the Morse team is the importance for advocacy amongst our clients. And when they're in that space where they're just in survival mode and they're unable to navigate their way through any systems because they're on the streets, they're looking at just surviving in that condition. So I think that the one thing that we can really take out of this is that when a person is unable to have a voice, we really are their voice in helping them, advocating for them, and navigating them through the various systems that are difficult for us and pretty much impossible for the people that we serve. Thank you.
So there was some data that was distributed, and I'm not going to talk about it specifically, except to say in the data that was distributed to you on our Morse team data, we basically had decreases in every domain, significant decreases in every domain that we're tracking: jail days, felony bookings, misdemeanor bookings, probation violation, inpatient days, lock care days. Our proudest thing, however, is our increase, and that's for days worked. We had a 98% improvement for individuals in this population across the 20 months that we've been operational in this new modality of people having work opportunities and days worked. And it translates in our community to community restoration. And it's really community service in a very visible way that gives the consumers in our charge a lot of pride. They can go to the park and see the work that they've done, and they really feel part of something bigger. We recently have had several of those individuals on a speakers bureau, and they talk about the importance of fitting in and being a part of the community in a meaningful way. So that's really our proudest achievement, I think, in terms of the statistical data. I just want to say that our history of collaboration, while strong, has really led us to some very significant stepping stones in terms of new initiatives. The pilot that we did with Danielle Long downtown as a liaison, while the funding was very tight from the city, we said we would pilot it. It's been so hugely successful. We're going to fund it as a full-time position next year, but additionally, we're adding 2 other jurisdictions in the county of Santa Cruz as a liaison. We are also putting in an effort to bring CIT training, train the trainer, to our law enforcement jurisdictions, of which in Santa Cruz County, because of state parks and universities and everything, that's 9 jurisdictions. So that's all taking place really out of this collaboration. The other thing that's happened with regard to our downtown and a safety task force that the district attorney is heading up is that the district attorney has embraced the MOST model. And he is talking it up everywhere he can possibly talk it up. And he is now talking about collaborating in this downtown area around the individuals with psychiatric disabilities to be a partner with the rest of the criminal justice system in making sure that we're getting these individuals treatment in lieu of incarceration. And we're sitting on his task force, and that task force is likely to result in additional downtown outreach-like positions. And finally, I just want to say we probably have finally got to the point of a formal mental health court. And Judge Morse, I'm going to let you close with some remarks about that.
Well, our motto used to be, come to Santa Cruz on vacation and leave on probation. But we're changing that paradigm. And what I've heard, what we've all heard here today from all our presenters is the power of working together and stepping outside of our comfort zones. And I think that Judge Manley has told us a great deal about what Santa Clara has been doing, and a number of us have been wanting to implement mental health courts for a long time. The budget crisis really set us back quite a bit because the presiding judges and those of us who were in charge of our budgets basically knew that the people saying we can't handle any more boutique courts, we can't handle any more collaborative courts, we need to go back to our core values of what we are required by statute to do. Well, those of us who have worked in the system long enough to see the paradigm shifting back and forth realize that unless we work together to have better outcomes for our clients with mental illness and to have better outcomes for our community, that really we are in the long run, saving for the budget. Each of you, and you could see that from the statistics that Pam passed out. We've reduced bed days, we've reduced a number of different costs, and we have people who are now feeling a restorative sense of justice. They are back as community members. Each of you have leadership roles in your areas of expertise. That's why you're here. And what I've learned through our process about the role of the authority of the court and why I've been pitching a mental health court in our community for a long time is the role of judges and what they can play in the process. For those that are here to lobby, who are going to go back and lobby your judges in your communities, there are 3 roles that I am aware that judges can play. Specifically, in your local court or your local counties, judges are conveners. You can call a meeting. If your judge calls a meeting, people will come. They want to work on these problems. They want to have lunch with the judge. And we can get that discussion going. There's also the state leveraging role that judges can play. And Judge Loftus told you today about the rules changes for the rules of court, which we think are going to bring about the fact that we're going to have greater discussions because we're all going to be in the same room together talking about these problems and solutions. In addition to that, we are also giving each county the autonomy to say, okay, you can do your own plan. You know how to best meet your community's needs. But each county, each court must have, and we wanted to have, each county shall have a mental health court. However, you know, you've got to work those things through the legislature, and you got to work those things through and wordsmithing came out that basically each of us will develop our own protocol. We all know what that means, and we are addressing it in appropriate ways. So the other way that a judge can really help you, and I think you all know this, and those of you who are fortunate enough to have mental health courts realize that the therapeutic value of the court process is actually very powerful. To hold someone accountable, but in an honorable and respectful way, really to encourage them in their development and their recovery is, I think, something that you really can't measure necessarily by statistics. We don't want to lose these people in the jail system. We don't want them to be in the circumstances that you saw in these videos and in that cage that was described by one of our speakers today. And we know that improvements, if we improve individual outcomes, we also will improve our community safety and just the quality of life that we all live in our communities. So while courts are not social workers or therapists, there is an opportunity to avoid the outcomes that we saw. And why are we not doing just that? And I think that's why we're here to join with you today and say we are totally on board. We are excited about working together. The other thing I can tell you about our court that maybe not all of these people know because they're already trained in it is that all of our court people, we are making a commitment to all become trauma-informed treatment trained. And if your service providers in probation or law enforcement are not trauma-informed treatment trained, I would suggest that you all start there. That's a really good place to raise consciousness, if you will. And those of you who are in treatment know exactly what I'm talking about. I have my armband on today that says, I am calm. And I got that at my trauma-informed training so that I just realized that when I start to deal with somebody who is really, really in a crisis mode, I take a big, deep breath and listen, just as you said. And so that's something I think that we also as courts are in the process of learning. So the longer that we all work in these fields, the more we realize that we're all interconnected, that true collaboration transcends traditional relationships that we've relied on before. Each case is different. Each person needs something different. All of you and us, we are called to this work. You wouldn't do it if you didn't have the heart for it. And the courts, our court is also, and I think many of you, because I see the handouts on the tables, are collaborating with the education system also, keeping kids in school, keeping them in the schoolroom and out of the courtroom. And one of the acronyms I learned from them at one of the conferences is about team. Together, each accomplishes more. So I feel that our collaborations here that we're building today, with that, each of us can achieve not only more, but the most for the individuals and communities that we serve. And I thank you for your attentions and your patience. And if you have any questions, I think we may be out of time, but our team will be around. So I'll turn it back over. Thank you.